What if the world is not unraveling into chaos, but instead morphing into a new order, one designed with ruthless precision and guided by hidden hands? Imagine a chessboard that stretches from the icy edges of the Arctic to the sweltering jungles of South America, with every piece moving not by chance, but by cold calculation. Behind every headline, every diplomatic shock, and every military maneuver, there could be a deeper strategy at work, a grand design that few truly see. Across every continent today, there is an uneasy hush. In the bustling streets of European capitals, in the deserts of the Middle East, and in the chaotic markets of Africa, people sense change in the air. Military maneuvers are not just exercises, they are signals. Diplomatic surprises are not just accidents, they are chess moves. Each headline blares crisis, but beneath the noise lies a subtle, almost invisible pattern, a pattern that, if recognized, can change the way we understand the world. Is this truly a string of disconnected emergencies? Or are these the calculated moves of a hidden contest for global dominance, a contest with stakes higher than anything seen before? History is full of moments where apparent chaos masked a deeper order. Think of the years leading up to the First World War, when alliances shifted and crises seemed random, until the whole world was drawn into conflict. Or consider the Cold War, when every small incident, from a spy exchange in Berlin to a missile test in Siberia, was part of a vast, silent battle for supremacy. Only days ago, Russia unveiled a missile that caught Washington completely off guard, sending shockwaves through the White House and beyond. The announcement was not just a technical update, it was a message. In almost perfect synchrony, Japan's abrupt diplomatic move unsettled Beijing, forcing Moscow to scramble fighter jets in a show of both power and anxiety. Meanwhile, former President Donald Trump delivered a blunt ultimatum to China. His words were not mere rhetoric. They could disrupt not only the flow of trade, but the very balance of international security that has held, however uneasily, since the end of the Second World War. Amid this turmoil, a Russian aircraft appeared over Venezuela, almost unnoticed by the wider world. Yet, for those paying attention, this incident could be the spark that shifts the balance of power right at America's doorstep. Each event is dramatic on its own, but together, they might be signals of something far greater. The birth of a new world order, where the old playbook is useless and every move is part of a deeper, more dangerous strategy. Ignore these connections, and you risk being blindsided by the next global shock, one that could upend your financial stability, threaten your safety, and rewrite the future you expect. We have seen this before. In the 1970s, when the oil embargo caught the West off guard. In 2008, when a housing crisis in America rippled into a global economic collapse. So, what is truly unfolding behind these headlines? What invisible threads connect a missile test in Russia with a diplomatic gambit in Japan and a shadowy landing in Venezuela? Let us dissect the incidents, trace the hidden threads, and reveal what is really at stake as the world's superpowers quietly redraw the boundaries of influence. Sometimes with words, sometimes with weapons, and often with both. Every move on the global chessboard is more deliberate than it appears. To understand where the world is heading, we must examine each incident and uncover the invisible ties binding them together. Think of the Cuban Missile Crisis, when a single decision in Moscow or Washington could have changed the course of history. Today, the risks are just as high, perhaps higher, given the speed at which information and misinformation now travel. From Moscow's secret missile labs to Washington's tense war rooms, something seismic is unfolding behind the headlines, shaping the world's fate in ways few dare to imagine. In the past, such shifts have led to the rise and fall of empires. The collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991 reshaped the map of Europe and unleashed waves of change across the globe. Could we be on the verge of another such transformation? The world just witnessed a shockwave. Russian President Vladimir Putin announced the Burevestnik, the so-called Doomsday cruise missile, has passed its final test. This is not just a weapon, it is a symbol of a new era. Armed with nuclear propulsion, it can fly for over 15 hours, cross more than 14,000 kilometers, and twist unpredictably through the skies, outmaneuvering any known missile shield. Imagine a missile launched from the far reaches of Siberia, able to reach any corner of the Earth, evading every defense. For military planners, this is not just a challenge, it is a nightmare. Western leaders responded with alarm. In Washington, former President Donald Trump brushed off the Russian display as bluster, insisting American submarines already lurk within striking range of Russia. He claimed these silent predators require neither a 15-hour flight nor thousands of kilometers to reach their prey. Trump accused Moscow of reckless escalation, especially with war raging in Ukraine, and called Russia's move both provocative and destabilizing. Moscow, however, replied with cold resolve. Kremlin officials maintained that Russia is acting solely to protect its own security, dismissing Western outrage as irrelevant. From their perspective, the West has encroached too close to Russian borders, supporting revolutions and deploying missile shields. The Burevestnik is, in their narrative, a response to years of pressure. Beneath these public exchanges, something far more ominous is at work. The old arms control agreements, painstakingly negotiated over decades, from the strategic arms limitation talks of the 1970s to the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty of the 1980s, are eroding. Suspicion and mistrust grow, and the ever-present threat of sudden escalation hangs over every negotiation. Dialogue has regressed to the rhetoric of the darkest Cold War days. Only now, the rules themselves may have vanished. Failing to grasp the stakes of this new arms race is not a minor oversight. It threatens economic stability, national safety, and the very fabric of global order. A single miscalculation, a radar blip mistaken for an attack, a submarine venturing too close, could trigger consequences felt from London to Tokyo. Everyone is touched by this, from rattled investors watching markets swing wildly, to families living under the shadow of war. Remember the panic of the 1960s, when schoolchildren in America practiced duck and cover drills, or the fear in Europe every time the Berlin Wall was tested by tanks. Yet this contest is not confined to Moscow and Washington alone. As the world watches anxiously, new power struggles are already igniting across the Pacific. In the past, Asia was seen as a secondary theater. Now, it may be the main stage. The next front lines may emerge in Asia, where rivalries and alliances are shifting at a dizzying pace. The consequences will ripple far beyond the world's capitals. Consider how, in the 1930s, tensions in the Pacific ultimately drew the entire world into conflict. Today, the stakes are even higher, with nuclear weapons and economic interdependence binding nations together in complex ways. A jolt from Tokyo. Is peace truly on offer, or is it the calm before a coming storm? Japan's newly appointed Prime Minister, Sanaya Tokaichi, has stunned the region with a sweeping peace proposal to Russia. This bold initiative, announced less than 4 days after she assumed office, has sent ripples through Asia, most notably in Beijing, where officials watch with unease. The echoes of history are loud. Every time Japan has shifted its foreign policy, the results have been dramatic. From the Meiji Restoration's opening to the West, to the alliance with America after the Second World War. But the peace overture is layered with history. It reopens the bitter, unresolved dispute over the Kuril Islands, a volcanic chain seized by the Soviet Union as the Second World War ended. After nearly 8 decades, the question of who truly owns these islands still stirs deep national pride and resentment on both sides. The islands are more than rocks and soil. They are symbols. For Russia, they are a hard-won prize. For Japan, a painful reminder of defeat. Russia, clearly blindsided by Tokyo's gambit, reacted with immediate force. Moscow launched massive military drills, sending state-of-the-art fighter jets to skirt Japanese airspace, a pointed display meant to both intimidate and warn. In the past, similar shows of force have led to tense standoffs, such as the Sino-Soviet border clashes of the 1960s or the standoffs in the East China Sea in more recent years. Officially, The Kremlin claims it is willing to talk, but only on strict conditions. Russia will not yield the Kurils, nor agree to any shift in territorial control. For Japan, this means any path to reconciliation is fraught with obstacles. The world has seen such deadlocks before. Think of the decades-long standoff over Kashmir between India and Pakistan, or the frozen conflict in Cyprus. Why would Japan risk provoking its neighbors now? The answer lies in mounting Chinese assertiveness and a region in flux. As global unpredictability grows, Tokyo is searching for new leverage and partners, even if it means rattling old rivals. This is a classic strategy. When the world order is shifting, even the cautious must sometimes act boldly. In the 1980s, for example, China opened to the world under Deng Xiaoping, transforming itself and the global economy. Today, Japan may be trying to carve out a new space for itself. Meanwhile, the global stakes keep climbing. At the Putin'S summit, United States-China tensions have erupted. President Trump has sharply raised tariffs, warning of dire consequences should Beijing refuse to compromise. In retaliation, China threatens to abandon talks, edging the world closer to a dangerous economic showdown. The echoes of the Smoot-Hawley tariffs in the 1930s, which worsened the Great Depression, are hard to ignore. With every maneuver, the world's power centers drift further apart. Tiny missteps could ignite crises, disrupt crucial trade flows, or even spiral into direct military conflict, risking the delicate balance that underpins global peace and prosperity. In 2014, the annexation of Crimea shocked the world and led to years of tension. Today, similar surprises could have far wider consequences. As rivalries sharpen and alliances shift, every decision counts. The margin for error is vanishing fast. In the Cuban Missile Crisis, a single miscommunication could have triggered nuclear war. Today, with even faster communication and misinformation, the risks are multiplied. A shadowy Russian aircraft has just landed in Venezuela. What message is Moscow sending this time? Under darkness, witnesses spotted a Russian Il-76 touching down in Caracas, its cargo sealed away from all but a select few. The event sent ripples through Washington, where United States officials quickly escalated regional surveillance and military readiness. The memory of the Cuban Missile Crisis, when Soviet missiles appeared in America's backyard, looms large. Analysts are left guessing. Some speculate the plane delivered cutting-edge weaponry or sophisticated air defense systems. Others suspect life-sustaining resources aimed at bolstering Maduro's troubled regime. In 1962, the world held its breath as Soviet ships steamed toward Cuba. Today, the stakes are different, but the pattern is familiar. A distant power seeking to tip the balance in America's vicinity. Regardless of the truth, this arrival unmistakably fortifies Venezuela's position and complicates any American strategy for influence. But this is about more than one arrival or alliance. Russia's move is a calculated show of strength, a stark rejection of decades of United States preeminence in Latin America. The Kremlin's message is unmistakable. The era of uncontested American sway is ending, and the strategic game is being rewritten in real time. These developments expose a world in flux, where alliances shift overnight and dangers materialize from unexpected quarters. The dominoes are linked, markets react, partnerships are tested, and the chance of direct confrontation increases with every bold maneuver. History has shown that when great powers compete in third countries, be it in Vietnam, Afghanistan, or Syria, the consequences can be unpredictable and far-reaching. To dismiss these warning signs is perilous. Failing to see the broader pattern could unleash cascading crises, endangering economic stability, collective security, and peace itself. In 1914, few foresaw that the assassination of an archduke would lead to a world war. Today, the connections may be even harder to see, but no less dangerous. New alliances are forming behind closed doors. As the old order unravels, the next move could redraw the global map overnight. In the past, secret pacts like the Molotov-Ribbentrop Agreement or the Sykes-Picot Agreement have redrawn borders and changed lives. The deals being struck today, between China and Russia or Turkey and Iran could have similar consequences. If the old rules no longer apply, how do you stay ahead in this new world disorder? The truth is unsettling. Our reality is being rewritten each day by moves that cross continents, technologies, and entire economies. To survive and thrive, you need more than just headlines. You need a blueprint for a world where the rules mutate overnight. First, stay truly informed. Do not accept events at face value. A missile test in Russia, a diplomatic pivot by Japan, or threats volleyed between Washington and Beijing, these are not isolated stories. Each is a calculated chess piece. Make it your habit to read between the lines, tracing the ripple effects from one region to another. For example, when oil prices spike after conflict in the Middle East, what does that mean for food prices in Africa or manufacturing in Europe? Second, diversify your exposure. In times like these, geopolitical and economic shocks can strike out of nowhere. Do not risk everything on a single bet. Whether it concerns your investments, your business strategies, or even your travel, adopt approaches that spread risk and build resilience. Think globally before acting locally. During the Asian financial crisis of 1997, those who had diversified their assets survived the turmoil. Those who had not suffered heavy losses. Third, distrust simple explanations. Today's power struggles blend military force, economic leverage, and diplomatic tactics in intricate ways. No single event stands alone. Always question easy answers, especially from politicians, pundits, or viral posts. When the Arab Spring erupted in 2011, few predicted how quickly it would spread or how many regimes would fall. Complexity, not simplicity, is the rule. Fourth, recognize new centers of power are rising. Alliances are shifting, and countries once on the sidelines are now stepping boldly into the fray. Volatility is no longer the exception, but the new normal. Prepare yourself, mentally and practically, for abrupt changes in global dynamics. For example, Indonesia, Nigeria, and Brazil are all emerging as regional powers, shaping their neighborhoods and the world in new ways. Ignoring these realities carries immense risk. Without this mindset, you are vulnerable to missed opportunities, financial setbacks, or even direct threats to your security. The price of complacency is higher than ever, both personally and professionally. The 2008 financial crisis taught painful lessons about the dangers of ignoring warning signs. But awareness is only the beginning. To truly navigate this shifting landscape, you need actionable strategies, moves that position you ahead of the next global shock. Build networks, cultivate sources of information beyond your usual circles, and think in scenarios. What if the next crisis hits the energy sector? What if supply chains are disrupted by conflict in Asia or cyber attacks in Europe? The world's major players are already making bold moves. What will yours be? In this era, every headline is a clue in a sprawling, high-stakes contest. Miss the underlying patterns, and the next global shock may arrive before you even sense the danger. But if you spot the signals, you can adapt, prepare, and maybe even tilt the odds in your favor. This is what successful nations, companies, and individuals have always done. The old world order is gone. Military threats now blur with surprise alliances and economic pressure, unfolding at breathtaking speed. Superpowers test limits, not just with missiles, but with words, covert deals, and sudden moves far from their borders. In the 21st century, information moves at the speed of light. So do crises. For years, many thought Cold War anxieties were history. Now we see the rules of global power being rewritten each day. National interests are clashing from the frozen Arctic to the contested South China Sea, from Latin America to the edges of Eastern Europe. The annexation of Crimea, the trade war between America and China, the rise of cyber warfare, all are chapters in this new era. Ignore these warning signs, and your security, personal and national, rests on chance. Economic upheaval, market crashes, or sudden conflict will not wait for your readiness. but by connecting the dots and reading the currents, you can see the storm before it strikes. In the past, those who saw the signs, like George Kennan, who predicted Soviet expansion, or Warren Buffett, who anticipated market crashes, were able to act before disaster struck. This is not only about governments or generals. It is about you, your job, your savings, your future. The global chessboard may seem distant, but every move eventually ripples out to shape your life. The question is, will you stand on the sidelines, or will you learn to read the game? Choose foresight over fear. Stay curious, ask sharper questions, and demand real answers from those in power. In this strategic age, those who understand the game can help decide what comes next. Each of us has a stake in how the pieces move, and in who writes the next chapter of history. The world is not unraveling. It is rearranging itself, rapidly and sometimes ruthlessly. The question is not whether change is coming, but whether you will be ready when it arrives.